Indonesia is often described as one of the most religious nations on Earth. A 2015 Pew Research survey found that 95% of Indonesians said religion is very important in their lives. And the World Values Survey in 2018 to 2022 likewise showed Indonesians scoring extremely high on religiosity. But religion here is not the whole story, because where religion flourishes, so too does superstition. And Indonesia isn't just one of the most religious countries in the world, it's also one of the most superstitious. From ghost stories to talismans to political leaders consulting shamans, superstition here isn't just part of the folklore, it's part of daily life. So how come being superstitious is a national identity in Indonesia? Indonesia is home to hundreds of ethnic groups, the Javanese, Sundanese, Bataknese, to name a few. Each has its own unique folklore, myths, and spiritual practices. And prying into Indonesia's history, animism and ancestor worship were part of the Indonesian culture long before Hinduism, Buddhism, Islam, and Christianity arrived. Those beliefs never fully disappeared. They blended into local traditions. The spread of these religions was relatively peaceful. Missionaries in Indonesia tended to avoid warfare, which in other parts of the world often erase entire cultures and belief systems. Here, religion spread mostly through trade and learning. And the new religions that came to Indonesia often mix older practices into their own worship. For example, Javanese Kejawen is a syncretic belief that mixes Islam with other animist and Hindu-Buddhist traditions. It leads to rituals, talisman, and respect for unseen spirits who guard nature and maintain the order of things. Suharto and Joko Widodo, two of Indonesia's presidents, have been accused of practicing Kejawen. Stories would circulate about how they amassed power through accumulating spiritual energy. They believed in a concept called Wahyu Keprabon, a spiritual mandate that imbues them with the essence to rule Indonesia. But in practice, it's basically aura farming points, making you patient and charismatic to the Javanese eyes. Besides Kejawen, Indonesia also has the Torajan Aluk Todolo, Bataknese Parmalim, and Sundanese Wiwitan. These belief systems, dotted across the archipelago, help create a society that believes in an unseen supernatural order. A society that believes if you have too many banana trees, you're inviting ghosts. If you say bad things in a sacred place, you'll attract spirits. If you smell jasmine at night, that means you're being stalked by a ghost. And if you wear green on the southern beach, which is usually in Yogyakarta, the Queen of the South will drag you under the waves. Basically, whatever you do, there's always a spirit doing something with you. The Indonesian worldview holds that the universe isn't just the physical realm we see, but actually a layered reality. An average Indonesian believes that there is a parallel society of spirits, ghosts, demons, and unseen creatures that lurk just underneath daily life. Doing the wrong thing might tear a hole in our reality and reveal them to us. And this worldview is not really unique to Indonesia. Malaysians and some Filipinos actually share similar belief systems. They all unanimously recognize spirits like Kuntilanak and the Pocong. The Kuntilanak, or Pontianak if you're Malaysian, is a vengeful vampiric spirit of a woman who hunts men and drinks their blood for whatever reason. The Pocong, meanwhile, is the Indonesian-Malaysian equivalent of a ghost, a zombie, and a mummy wrapped all into one. These are just a few of the spirits Indonesians believe lurk around their daily lives. And Indonesia's predisposition to superstition bleeds into the modern era. How do we know this for sure? Because superstition is now a commercial product. Horror is actually really big in Indonesia. Indonesia has one of the most vibrant horror film industries in Asia. Movies like Pengabdi Setan, Pocong, Badarawuhi, and Suster Ngesot draw directly from folk beliefs and urban legends. And these films, they don't just entertain, but they reinforce and recycle the superstitions that circulate around Indonesian society. A kid who laughs at the absurdity of a Kuntilanak movie might later think twice about hearing a baby cry at night because that signifies that the kuntilanak is near. On the bright side, horror films also serve as cultural preservation, retelling old village ghost stories for urban and modern audiences. The business of jimat and azimat talismans is still very huge here in Indonesia. Items like keris daggers, inscribed stones, cloths, or rings infused with Quranic verses or shamanic rituals are often sold online, even on TikTok. And the pushback against these products isn't skepticism actually, but faith. Many Muslims call them heretical items to be sold. And still, shamans sell them, and business people and politicians in Indonesia buy their services for protection, charisma, or even luck. A quick Google search shows dozens of politicians sought shamans to help them in the 2024 Indonesian general elections, casting spells on opponents or boosting charisma. It's not unusual for Indonesian presidents to consult mystics before rolling out public policy, and there are stories that circulate about Jokowi locking himself inside a section of the Yogyakarta Palace for 3 days with his spiritual gurus. Imagine Sri Mulyani's frustration afterwards in the cabinet meeting. Entire shadow economies run on these practices, and while they're harder to see in Jakarta unless you know where to look, they're very rampant in rural Indonesia, where over 41% of the Indonesian population still lives. And on the internet, superstition has gone viral. One famous Twitter thread told a secondhand story of university students experiencing hauntings in a quote-unquote village of dancers. These students, they refused to name exactly where the village is, but their entire story blew up overnight and even spawned a blockbuster horror franchise, KKN, Desa Penari. People actually made it a competition to hunt for the relocation of the village. That's how alive superstition is in Indonesia, and you can imagine the grip it has inside the Indonesian consciousness. For Indonesians, superstition is drilled in from childhood. Parents tell kids to keep quiet in unfamiliar places, which is called sompral, or risk attracting spirits. They warn not to wear green while swimming at the beach because Nyi Roro Kidul, the queen of the southern sea, will probably kidnap you because you're wearing her color. Even religion reinforces superstition. Muslim kids are told not to play outside after Maghrib, which is around 6 p.m., or else the boogeyman, Wewe Gombel, will snatch them away. Even with modern education and the internet, belief in the unseen continues to survive. Countries like Japan, China, and even the United Kingdom still have very strong superstitions. In Hong Kong, buildings are designed with holes so dragons can pass through. And in Japan, people believe sneezing means someone is talking about you. And inside the United Kingdom, knocking on wood dispels bad luck. And in Indonesia, many buildings don't even have a fourth floor, especially Chinese-owned buildings, because in East Asian cultures, the number 4 sounds like the word for death. Superstition in Indonesia is not just an irrational belief. It's a system of community rules and shared identity. It's what lets the country of hundreds of cultures to live side by side. By having a shared superstitious worldview, Indonesians shape a unified identity. The idea that human life is interwoven with the supernatural is something everyone intuitively understands, regardless of faith or ethnicity. It creates a cultural baseline even when religion, politics, and ethnicity divide. Superstition is a national character for Indonesians. Even in democracy, it underpins authority. Leaders are rumored to aura farm through mystics. Charisma, wibawa, or aura is viewed as both political and mystical, and political gossip always whisper about spiritual legitimacy as if votes alone are not enough to get you as the president. But superstition has its critics here in Indonesia. One of the strongest was Tan Malaka, the socialist thinker who wrote the book Madilog in 1943. He believed mystic logic was a fundamental obstacle to Indonesian progress, that it kept Indonesians trapped in irrational explanations, vulnerable to imperialists and opportunists. He wanted a scientific, rational Indonesia free from these shackles of feudalism. But others pushed back on Malaka's conclusion. Many Indonesians believe superstition actually gave life, meaning, identity, and legitimacy to Indonesia. Religious organizations like Muhammadiyah condemn takayul bid'ah as superstition and heresy, but still many preserve metaphysics Tan Malaka dismissed. Mysticism didn't die, it actually adapted. And unlike Western rationalism, Indonesia's view of reality is actually very layered. The visible world of people, politics, money, and the unseen world of spirits, ancestors, and divine forces. Daily life is a negotiation between the two worlds, and that layered worldview creates both strengths and burdens. On one hand, Indonesians are super resilient. Superstition helps people accept disasters and hardships as part of a greater order, fostering patience and survival inside the Indonesian subconscious. They're also pretty flexible. Because reality is layered and unpredictable, Indonesians adapt really quickly. Syncretism is natural for Indonesians. But this worldview also breeds anxiety. Every act could tear the veil between worlds. So caution, suspicion, and fear actually run deep inside the Indonesian society. That's why Indonesia's superstitious culture is so strong. It gives the country a shared worldview, that Indonesians are part of a cosmic balance between two realities. Superstition provides invisible rules that hold society together. It's the national glue that lets extraordinary diversity coexist without fracturing. And it isn't going away anytime soon. Survey shows Indonesian Gen Zs are less religious than their parents, but they're actually more spiritual. They reject long prayers and institutions, but believe in astrology, tarot, and crystals. They probably laugh at old taboos, but Indonesian Gen Z still binge ghost stories on Twitter and TikTok. This shows that while rationalism may grow, the belief in a parallel society of spirits doesn't actually fade. It adapts. I think the key takeaway from all of this is to learn that the point of superstition is to put yourself accountable in a society of people with different backgrounds, beliefs, and opinions. When these differences live inside a small space together, your actions and thoughts are your responsibility to regulate. Sometimes, there are things you shouldn't say out loud and that you should keep to yourself. Nobody wants to hear it. Of course, I'd like to remind you that I make this video not to condone or erase superstition, rather to explore why it drives our society. Please tell me what you think in the comments down below. Don't forget to leave a like and tell me what you think about the episode today. Don't forget to click like, subscribe, and comment down below what you think of this episode, and I will see you in the next episode of the Based Indonesian Show.
Subscribe to the Based Indonesian Show. Dijamin halal.